Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Avadh. I am dedicated functional consultant in a Dynamic 365. This is my YouTube channel. Over here I am sharing my implementation experience with you all. So today I am going to start to discuss you about with TDS. So to start with very basic, what is a TDS? So TDS is nothing but reduction of the money paid to the vendor. So there is a reduction in the amount which we pay to the vendor. So there is a certain nature of the payment, like rent, commission, professional fees, salary and interest. So over such kind of payment if you will do, then TDS will be applicable to such a transaction. So at such a case we need to pay TDS to the government. So what is when TDS liability will actually occur? So as per the law, TDS liability will occur at the time of the payment or invoice, whichever is earlier. So if I will do the payment first, it will consider as an advance payment and TDS will be applicable on that payment. And if I will recording the invoice first, then TDS will be levied on that invoice recording. So TDS will be applicable whichever is earlier. But if you have already deducted TDS on a payment, so you did not need to deduct TDS again at the time of the payment. So this setup also we'll see on a further part of this lecture. So this TDS payment to whom we are doing, so who is liable to do the TDS payment? So the person who is doing a payment is liable to pay TDS amount to the government authority, right? Then I'm discussing with you one transaction to specify and clarify the concept related to the TDS. So over here, if you will see, I have taken the 2 lakh of the professional charges, professional services from one of the vendor. So I need to do the payment to that particular vendor. So in such a case, what I will do, I will discuss with you right now. So I have received one invoice from XYZ consulting firm that my basic amount of this invoice is a 2 lakh, right? And over there they charge GST. So there is 18% of the GST, and my net payable net amount of the invoice is a 2,36,000. Right? So on the same will charge TDS. But here if you will charge the TDS, you need to exclude all other taxes, whether it is a GST and VAT or any other taxes as per the country and as per the transaction. Whatsoever other taxes is there, we need to exclude the same. So TDS will always be calculate on a basic amount. So here basic amount is a 2 lakh. So TDS will be calculate on 10% because it is a professional service. TDS rate is a 10% for the same. So TDS will be levied on a 2 lakh for a 10%, which is a 20,000. But we will not pay that 20,000 to vendor. We will pay that 20,000 to the government authority, and rest of the 2,16,000 out of 2,36,000 will pay to the vendor. So that's how the bifurcation of the TDS will work. Now I'm going to discuss with you hierarchy of the transaction. So what happens when transaction will occurs? The person who is doing a payment will deduct the TDS and pay to the that taxpayer will deposit the same to the government, and that the person is also filed the TDS return, and after filing the TDS return, he will issue a TDS certificate to the payee on a behalf of the person. He's doing the payment, so he share the same certificate to the payee, and at the time of TDS return and income tax return, the payee can claim that TDS through government. So that's how the hierarchy of the transaction will work in a TDS. So we'll start with the basic setup. So I'm going into the general ledger. In a general ledger, we need to enable TDS setup, right? So in a general ledger, we have a general ledger parameter. In a general ledger parameter, we need to go to direct taxes. Over there, I have enabled TDS. Then I have enabled TDS on an invoice and TDS on a payment. So why it is important? Because I have seen in a some of the because our TDS will be levied on an invoice or payment, whichever is earlier. So it is important to enable both invoice or payment. I have seen some of the my client who are not enabled the TDS on a payment. They are on a view that TDS will be deducted 2 times if I will enable on a invoice or payment on a both. But it is not right way to do. I always suggest to enable both invoice and payment, TDS on invoice or payment. Then there is option of TCS. On TCS also we need to enable in TCS and TCS on invoice or payment. Why? Because TCS is nothing but TCS will be actual liability will occur on the time of the payment. But at the time of the invoicing, we are creating a temporary liability for the TCS, right? So this is one more feature, I mean a button that we can disable vendor TDS reversal for a duplicate deduction. So how it is work and why I have not disabled this, I will let you know in a future in a later video. So we have a doubt, right, that suppose we have deducted TDS on an invoice and we forgot to settle that invoice at the time of the payment, and due to that we have deducted TDS on a 2 times at the time of invoice and at the time of payment. Then what we can do for that, if you will do settlement, then this duplicate TDS will be automatic get reversed. I will discuss and I have tested this how it is work. I will discuss on a later stage of the video. Then we can apply TDS on a cross company payments. Also we can this feature we can enable this feature for a credit note and purchase return. So this is nothing but in case of the purchase return, whatsoever TDS group will be a charge on a original purchase will automatically come on a purchase return also. So this button will help for the same. Right, then our next setup is we require to do some setup on a organization and admin level. So I'm going into the organization and administration on a legal entity. Yes, over there on a legal entity, we need to enter the PAN information of particular legal entity. It is a very mandatory setup. Then over here we have a address on a advanced level. We can able to enter tax related information. So over here it is a mandatory to write a TAN number. Then we'll see next setup. The next setup is so on a customer master and vendor master, it is a mandatory to have a PAN number, and also it is a mandatory to enter TDS group or vendor group. I'm showcasing you in one of the case. So I'm going into the vendor. On a vendor level, I'm going into the invoice and delivery tab. On an invoice and delivery tab, we have a withholding tax. Calculate withholding tax button. This button we need to enable, otherwise a system will not calculate TDS. Then also we need to select the withholding tax group over here. And the second mandatory setup is we need to we need to change the status of PAN number as an received, and we need to enter the PAN number over here. On a tax information tab, we need to enter TAN number, and also we need to write the nature of the assessee over here. Then next setup is related to the main accounts. So we have created so many main account related to the TDS. If I will go here in main account, general ledger, and chart of accounts, main accounts. So I'm selecting TDS. I'm filtering out the TDS. So if I will go any of the TDS account, it is mandatory to write down a withholding tax type as an Indian withholding tax, and so this is again a mandatory setup. You can see over here TDS on a contract. Also we have write down a posting type as an TDS, withholding India withholding tax TDS. Then next setup, I think so we have covered all other setup before starting the main TDS related setup. So now I am into the TDS module, tax module, and on a tax module I am into the withholding tax. I am onto the setup. Just a second. On a setup I am into the withholding tax. On a withholding tax, we have a withholding tax component group, and we have a withholding tax component. So I'm starting with a withholding tax component group. So I have created a few groups over here. So it is advisable to create groups on the basis of the section. If I have a section 194C, I have created one group for the same. This is for 194J, this is for 194I, and this is for 194Q. Then we need to attach this withholding tax component group into the withholding tax component. So suppose if you will see this is for a contractor 194C, I have created withholding tax group that I have attached over here for a contract. Same way I have attached for a 194Q also. So after these two setup, we need to go to the indirect tax. In a withholding tax, we need to create a withholding tax authority over here. So it is always advisable to create a withholding tax again section wise. Some of the company have such a kind of habit that they are creating only one withholding tax authority, but I am again suggesting you to create a section wise authority, because if you find any problems and any error during the reconciliation or transaction of the TDS, you will easily able to find out in a which section and in which area you have faces the issue. So I will always suggest to do section wise. Then over here this is a 194C and 1%. So I have created the withholding tax authority and I have attached the vendor for the same. Okay, 1%. The same way I have created other withholding tax authority. After creation of withholding tax authority, it is important to create a withholding tax period. So I have created withholding tax period for, again it is I have created as in section wise, and it is advisable to create a section wise only. So what I have done, I have selected 194C 1%, and I have mapped that withholding tax settlement period to the withholding tax authority. Yes, it is important to map correct withholding tax authority with withholding tax settlement period. Why? Because after running of a withholding tax payment process, all the liability related to that particular section for that particular period will be will automatically pass one journal entry, and for passing that journal entry to that particular withholding authority, it is a mandatory to have a proper withholding tax authority mapped with withholding tax settlement period. Then we have a next setup of withholding tax component group, and setup of withholding tax code, and then group. So we are again into the tax module. In tax module we have a indirect tax. In indirect tax we have a withholding tax. On withholding tax we are into withholding tax code. So I have created withholding tax code for a 194C. This is for a company, so it is for a 2%, and this is for a individual. So suppose I have created 194C contract 2% over here, right? Then After creating this, I need to firstly select text type as an TDS. If I will select text type as an TDS, this 4 button will be enabled: settlement period, receivable account, and withholding tax component. So after that, what I have selected, I have selected TDS payable account on a company level as a main account, and also I have selected receivable account. So so I have selected different payable and receivable account. Some of the company are having a practice that they are using same main account for a receivable and payable, but I have selected a separate account because if it is a purchase return, then we'll able to easily find out that what is a credit not related transaction through this different main account. Then we need to select the settlement period over here. So over here I need to select TDS on a contractor. So this is a contractor 1% TDS. Then also I need to select the withholding tax component over here. This is nothing but contractor. Then we'll discuss about a little bit about the section that 194C have two limits. One is an aggregate limit and another is an individual transaction limit. So if your transaction is below 30,000, then there is a no TDS, and if your transaction your individual transaction have a aggregated with more than 1 lakh, and that your individual transaction have a total of more than 1 lakh, then TDS will levied, otherwise there is no TDS. Okay, so there is a 2 limit. All other section have only 1 limit. This section have a 2 limits. That's why I've covered this this section. So the aggregate amount is 1 lakh, but over there is a 2 more individual limit. That one is for a till 30,000, there is no TDS here no TDS, and then if it is more than 30,000, then TDS will be levied. So this is a kind of section will suggest. Over there also we have a like company related SSE, then there is a 2% TDS, and other than company, individual HUF and all, we have a 1% of TDS, right? Individual and HUF, we have a 1% of TDS. So so this is a this is a 2 different rate. So for 2 different rate, we need to select a 2 code. We need to create a 2 code and 2 groups. Sorry, a TDS code for a better understanding. 2 TDS code, 2 TDS group. Okay, 1 TDS code for a 1% and 1 TDS code for a 2%. Over there we have this threshold limit. So how we can enable threshold limit? I will let you know. So by clicking on this threshold limit hierarchy enable, threshold limit will enable, and this is a PAN based accumulation. Suppose we have a multiple vendor with the same PAN number, this will accumulated those transactions. Then over here we have a value button. If we are not using any threshold, then this is a common rate 2% for a contractor, a company contractor, and if they don't have a PAN card, then we can tax will be TDS will be at 20%. Okay. Suppose if there is a changes in a rate, then we can write down the to date meets the end date of this old rate, and we can see enter new rate also. But right now this rate is remains constant since so long, so I am not writing any dates. It means it is a default for our years. Okay, then yes. We'll discuss about the threshold. We need to click on threshold reference, right? Then I need to click on all. Then from here create a threshold. You can create a threshold. I have already created the threshold, and you need to click on the threshold designer. So over here, if you will just a second, this is a Microsoft bug. Yeah. Now you will able to find tax value, otherwise sometime tax value will not enable. So what I have done, So my cumulative limit is for 1 year is 1 lakh. So I have selected I have selected period 1 year of period and 1 lakh as an upper limit, but this is not my final level of the limit. Why? Because there is a two more per transaction limit on this particular cumulative limit. So what I need to do, from cumulative limit I need to click on a new, and I need to then automatically system will select this period. I need to select 30,000 over here, because till 30,000 there is no TDS on a 194C. Then this limit for is a for per transaction. The first one is a cumulative. So over there I have selected cumulative. This is a per transaction limit. So I have selected per transaction limit. Then there is a two type of assessee. One have a PAN card number and another have no PAN card number. So if there is a no PAN card number, then by default we need to select a 20% tax rate. And if we have a PAN card number, then we will charge 2% of the TDS. Over there, here you can see define tax rate for a PAN card received and not received, not available PAN card. Then we have a option over here that calculate previously non-tax transaction. Over here it is till 30,000 there is no tax, so we don't need to enable this, and till 30,000 there is a no tax. So I have on a tax calculated I have selected no, and this is all the TDS is a turnover base, so I have selected yes over here. Then there is a second limit is a 30,000 and more, any up to the end. I mean, there is no particular upper limit. So if my transaction is crosses 30,000, so my lower limit is a 30,000, and if it will crosses that 30,000, then each particular of any transaction TDS will be calculated, and TDS will calculate on the transaction which is previously not taxed. So that what does mean that my first transaction was a 25,000, so TDS will not calculate on 25,000 because it is a lower than 30,000. But my next transaction is a more than 30,000. Suppose it is a 35,000, so TDS will be calculated on a 35,000 plus 25,000, which is a 60,000. So for that I need to enable this setup in the system. The rest of the thing is the same, and the same way I have for a cumulative transaction of more than 1 lakh, TDS will be applicable. So I have set up this as per the law. Then so that's how we can do the designer. Then there is a one more section. So as we are discussing about the threshold designer, so I think so I can continue that threshold designer of 194Q with you. So over here, the same way I have enabled the threshold designer of 194Q, and over here on a threshold reference I have already created threshold design for 194Q. Right now I'm discussing the same with you. First I need to remove that's a Microsoft bug. Again I'm in a threshold designer, right? So yeah, 194Q is applicable if my goods is a more than goods value is more than 50 lakh. So over here there is no individual limit. During the year, any particular of time my transaction amount will crosses 50 lakh, then TDS on 194Q will apply. So what happens, so there is a no individual limits, so only I need to create a two cumulative design. First is for a till 50 lakh. If you will see the I don't know, just a second, yeah, so so till 50 lakh calculate is a calculate tax TDS is a no. Why? Because till 50 lakh we don't need to pay TDS, and after 50 lakh TDS will be yes. After TDS tax calculate is a yes. Why? Because TDS will be apply on more than 50 lakh of the transaction. Here on a 194C, if you will notice that calculate previously non-tax transaction, I have a click on a yes. Why? Because 194 is CE have a 30,000 of limit, and once I will cross 30,000 limit, TDS will leave it on amount 0. So all the non-taxable transaction till my 30,000 limit, all the transaction we need to deduct the TDS. But here TDS will leave it only and only if any amount which is above 50 lakhs. So over here I don't need to select this button because I don't require to deduct TDS on first 50 lakh, right? So this is a 194Q designer. Same way we need to create we can create for 194J and even for 194I also. So on a 194J, the only thing we need to we don't have for 194J is for a profession. So if the 30,000 limit will cross, then TDS is levied. So the same way you need to select over here 30,000 and over here also 30,000. Rest of the thing will remain same, but only changes is same way except 194Q, all section have a same law that if I cross the 30,000 limit, all the non-taxable, previously non-taxable transaction will leave it for the TDS. So I need to enable this button in a for a 194J and any other section setup except 194Q. Okay, so this is all about designer. Then we need to go to the withholding tax group. This is again very important setup. So over here there is a contractor 1% and contractor 2% of withholding tax group I have created. Okay, so I have created text type, I have selected text type as an TDS, and then as we have discussed on our first our transaction that any other taxes TDS will not apply on the same. So I have exclude all the transactions such as a VAT, excise and service tax, GST, all such on such a transaction TDS will not apply. Then what I have done, I have click on new and I have mapped my withholding tax code with withholding tax group. So once I will map my withholding tax code, you will see that this value will automatically come over here. This value will come from this value button. Okay. So whatsoever I have a rate selected on withholding tax code will automatically come to the withholding tax group from here. Then next step is to enable the designer by clicking here on a designer. We just need to add click on a new and we just need to click select this tax code over here. This is very mandatory because this is inside the withholding tax. So sometime I have seen people forget to add designer. If you will not add designer, again it is important to add a designer. If you will not then also system will not calculate TDS. So it is again mandatory setup. Now we have able to complete all the TDS related setup. Now we will see all the transaction one by one. So I have created 4 vendor and I will let you know the purpose of creation of this 4 vendor. So we'll start with Rajsan Innovation LLP, which is a individual vendor and have it applicable 194C 1%. And if you will see over here in my PAN number, the 4th digit is a start with P. Okay, so now I'm going into this vendor. So on this vendor, if you will see that we have done the first setup is we have enabled withholding tax and we have attached a withholding tax group as a contractor 1% and we have entered the PAN card detail of this vendor. Okay, so this is a necessary setup. We'll done that for particular vendor. Now we'll see we have created 2 purchase related transaction. Okay, so I have already created that transaction. So I'm going into the invoice journal in a invoice journal. Yes, in a invoice journal, if you will see that our first transaction invoice T001 is of 22,000. So if you will see over here that it is a individually less than 30,000 and aggregate it is a first transaction, so it is also aggregatedly less than 1 lakh. So there is a no TDS on such. So as per the law there is no TDS, and as per the, if you will see in a system, suppose if you are passing any entry, you before passing that and posting this entry, you can see withholding tax from this area. So you will see that we have 22,000 original amount, but there is no TDS deducted on this transaction. Then second transaction is again 23,000, which is a less than individual limit of 30 and aggregate limit of 1 lakh. Again there is a no TDS. Then the third is also same, because all three total is a 73,000, which is less than 1 lakh, so there is a no TDS. Then if you will see, I have created one more transaction which is for a 67 lakh. And if you will see on a withholding tax, this 67 lakh is more than the individual limit of 30,000 and aggregate limit of 1 lakh. So what system will do here, for first three transactions, system have not charged any TDS, right? So this 73,000 there is no TDS, and then there is a one more transaction of 67,000. So what system will do? System will calculate TDS on a previously non-tax transaction, non-TDS calculate transaction. So it will calculate TDS on overall 1,40,000 transaction. Right, so if you will see here, the total of these four is a 1,40,000, and a system have directly calculated TDS 1% on a 1,40,000. So that's how a system will work on a 194C related transaction. Now what we'll do, we'll cover one more example. In this example, this is the second vendor, Pineapple Technology Private Limited, who have a, I mean, if you will see over here, the fourth digit of the PAN number is a C, which means it's a company. So here on a 194C, we have a 2% rate for a company. So I have attached that withholding tax group to that particular vendor. So what I have done, I have created one payment entry for that. So over here we received 1,20,000 of invoice for this particular vendor, and vendor have a payment terms like if that you need to pay the 50% advance before the invoice. So what I have done, I have first I have given them 50% advance. So let us check to that entry. 50 so it is 1,20,000 invoice, so 50% of this is a 60,000. So let us check the advance entry of 50,000, 402, right? 402. So in this case, if you will see that we have a 60,000 of the payment to that particular vendor, right? So what is a law suggests us? Law suggests that invoice and payment, whichever is earlier, TDS will levied on the same. So here we have done the advance payment, so TDS will be levied, because again it's crossed the basic limit of 30 individual 30,000 payment also. So TDS will be applicable on this 60,000 as a 2%, right? So that's how TDS will work on a payment. Now next transaction we have done, we have invoiced that particular vendor invoice for 1,20,000. So in such a case, we are into invoice journal, and now if you will see, it's okay, 404, yeah. This I I have not posted. If you will see over here that this is a normal invoice you can able to see, right? Over here if you will see that the 1,20,000 means TDS will charge on whole 1,20,000, but the problem is we have already deducted 60,000 TDS on an advance, so we cannot deduct TDS again on a 1,20,000 of invoice. So what we'll do, we'll settle this transaction with 60,000 advance. So I need to mark over here. I will click on OK. Here you need to click no. So if you will see over here, the amount is 1,20,000, but I have settled the advance related to this transaction. So if after that, if you will see on a withholding tax, it will reduce to 60,000 only. Why? Because we have already paid TDS on an advance to 60,000. So that's how system will work on an advance payment. I hope it is clear to you. Then our next transaction is we have a like a vendor 17, where we have created these 4 entries, right? And TDS of 1,40,000 will be deducted. So now what we'll do, we'll pass one payment entry. Let me go to the 406 payment entry. So over there oh, it's okay, 406, and so 406 entry and 407. So on a entry number 407, what I have done, I have settled the open transaction of the 22,000, which is the first transaction of this 4 transaction. So if I will settle, so there is a 2 type of doing payment. There is a 3 type of doing the payment. First is to settle the open transaction. If I will click on a settle transaction, then all open transaction will come and I can settle that open transaction over here. So I have settled this transaction. Due to that, if you will see that there is a no withholding tax, because I have already paid tax on a invoice, vendor invoice. So now I don't need to I deduct the TDS again. So what I have done, I have settled the transaction, and this is the payment related to this particular transaction, so no TDS will be applied. But by mistake, on a second payment, what I have done, I have a 3 apart from this 22,000. If you will see that there is a 1,18,000 of payment is a pending. So I have decided to pay all 1,18,000 together, but I forgot to settle this transaction over here. So what happened, by mistakenly the TDS will be calculated on this particular transaction as an 11,018, right? 1% of this 1,18,000. So what happens that I have already deducted TDS at the time of invoice, and now at the time of payment I forgot to settle those invoices. Due to that, wrongly TDS is deducted over here. So so in such a case, we have one option that we can pass one withholding tax journal, and the second option, we will settle this transaction. So at the time of the settlement of the transaction, if TDS will deducted multiple time on a invoice and on a payment, then the TDS which is I mean deducted second time by mistakenly a second time will get reversed. So here TDS firstly I mean deducted on a invoice, so that will not reverse, but the TDS secondly charge on a payment, that will get reversed at the time of the settlement. So what I want to show you, I am going into that particular vendor. If you will see over here, this 1,18,000 I have done the payment for these 3 particular invoices. So what I will do, I will settle this transaction with these 3 open invoice, and once I will do this, so I have done this settlement, then system will reverse the TDS related to the to those three invoice. But here system will not able to understand the designer. There is a one loophole in a system that if system at the time of settlement, if system will reverse the TDS, system will not reverse the TDS which is previously non-tax transaction. So over here, if you will see that we have not deducted TDS on those two transaction, directly TDS is deducted on this transaction. So system will reverse the TDS of this transaction only. System will not able to reverse the TDS of those two transactions. So that is a loophole from Microsoft. Then apart from this, if you feel that you have wrongly deduct TDS and something, then you can pass the withholding tax journal. We'll see that also in the next video. Yes, after above example, we will take one more example related to 1194Q. So we have created this vendor, Pradeep Video Private Limited, which is a 194Q related vendor. So I'm going into this this transaction. So for that particular vendor, we have a transaction of 65 lakh. Okay, so with 65 lakh is above 50 lakh. So withholding tax will be levied on this particular transaction. So if you will see over here, that withholding tax is not levied on this whole 65 lakh. It is 1% of only 15 lakh. So out of this 65 lakh, 15 lakh is only amount which is above 50 lakh of the basic limit. So system will only calculate TDS on a 15 lakh 0.01%, right? So we have not enabled the tick of previously non-taxed transaction. Due to that, system will not calculate the TDS on till 50 lakh. Okay, so this transaction, I hope it is clear to you. So that's how 194Q is working in the system. Yes, after 194Q, we have covered, I think so, almost all the example. Now I'm moving towards a lower and lower TDS deduction, right, which is a concession rate. So over here I have created one vendor which is Airtel Broadband India Private Limited, and generally in this case system will charge 2% of TDS, but we have defined another rate which is a lower TDS rate. So what happened that that vendor need to apply to AO for a lower TDS certificate or maybe a no TDS deduction certificate, and once AO will approve that certificate will have a validity of 1 year, then every year that need to be renew, and AO will do renew that particular certificate. So it is up to AO that how much amount and how much rate they can allow for a lower deduction, right? So over here generally I have seen so many lower deduction certificate that there is a certain cap limit, I mean amount limit for a lower deduction, and there is a lower tax also. So what I have done, I have configured a lower tax deduction for this particular vendor. So I'm going into this tax module. Over here we have a withholding tax, and in a withholding tax we have a withholding tax concessions. So if you will see over here that I have a make this I have enter the certificate number of this Bharti Airtel, right, and I have also written the from date to date of this particular certificate. Now what next step I need to do, I need to go to the withholding tax group code. Over there I have already, because Airtel Bharti is a company, right, so it is a company deductee. So over here we have already defined some threshold, right, but for this particular vendor we have some different threshold. So what we required, to do a setup of the threshold separately for the particular vendor. and you know the basic rule of ERP that vendor is vendor is all is vendor will override the group and group will override all. So vendor have a first priority, then group, and then all. So so if the transaction will come over here, then system will if it is we have selected table, then table have a first priority, then group, and then all. So here I have selected that table and selected that particular vendor, and I have created one threshold designer. Yes, I'm going into this particular threshold designer. So if you will see that this certificate have a lower tax deduction of 1,10,000 up to limit of 12 lakh, right? So what happened that till 1 lakh till 12 lakh, if you will see that TDS is a 1.1%. Once it will cross that 12 lakh, then again system will calculate 2% of TDS, right? So that's how this will work. So what I have done, I have passed one transaction for this particular vendor. Now I'm going into the transaction. If you will see that first invoice is for 35,500, which is below the limit of 12 lakh, so 1.1 TDS will be levied. Then there is one more invoice of 12 lakh, so which is crossed the limit of 12 lakh overall. This is a 12 lakh 35,000. So what system will do, till 12 lakh system will calculate TDS on a 1.1%, and then system will calculate TDS on a 2%. So for a better understanding, I have calculated this on Excel, that we have a first invoice of 35,500. But we have a certificate of 12 lakh. So out of 12 lakh, I will remove if I will remove this invoice is for 12 lakh. So out of 12 lakh, if I remove 35,500, then 11,64,500 is remaining. So for that, system will calculate TDS as an 1.1%. Then we have a more amount of 35,500. So for that, system will calculate TDS on a 2%. Altogether combined will be a 12 lakh, and for this 12 lakh, system will calculate 13,519 TDS, right? 1.1% on 11,64,000 and 2% on 35,500. So this total 13,519 will match with this withholding tax amount, right? So that's how system will calculate the lower tax deduction. Then we have a one after all such a thing. We have a one more concept of TDS payment. Over here we have a tax. In a tax we have a declaration, and declaration we have a withholding tax. From here we can do withholding tax payment. So I have selected TDS. I'm selecting 10 number. I'm selecting settlement period. As an TDS, I'm selecting this for this October month. This is the original tax payment version, because I'm doing tax payment for October month for a first time. If I have done already any payment and I have run this payment as before in October anywhere, then I need to select latest correction. So after payment of the original correction, original TDS, if there is any correction, system will take only this correction, not whole TDS. Okay, then I need to click on after that you need to click on OK. Once you will click on OK, system will run the payment process. I have already run the payment process, so I'm not doing this again. Then in account payable, I'm going into the vendor. In all vendor, we have this TDS related vendor, TDS 1%. So if you will see that system have already created the liability on this particular vendor for the 25,800. So you will able to find out that all the TDS liability will automatically come to the TDS vendor, and then we can do the payment through the through the vendor payment. So now I'm going into the account payable in a vendor payment journal. So in a vendor payment journal, I have just posted this entry. Let me go to that entry. Over here I will select the settle transaction. Then this 25,800 this open invoice will come, and I can settle that transaction. So I have done this. Then after passing this entry, there is one more option in a withholding tax. We have a challan information, so we can write down the challan number over here, date of payment, bank name and BSR code, and even we can write down the text also. So once suppose I have written that 43 something as an 432 randomly I have written as in this challan number. So you can able to find out the same on a tax and indirect on a withholding tax settlement period on a 10th. If I will see the withholding tax transaction, you will able to find even challan number and challan date over here, so you can reconcile the same. And even in a withholding tax payment, you have this challan detail also, right? So that's how system will work on a withholding tax. I have covered almost all the part. Now for the TCS and recoverable certificate, I will cover this on a next video. Also I will cover on that video, suppose we have deducted wrong TDS, then how we can pass withholding tax journal. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you all. And please do subscribe for more such a valuable video, and share with your friends and family for such a informative content. Thank you all.